I've listened to over 100 hours of Jordan Peterson and I've learnt 3 incredibly valuable lessons from his work, the third being the most valuable. This man has changed thousands of lives, including mine, and although he's widely criticised by the media, I want to show that there is intrinsic value in his work, completely separate from his political stances. This is a video about how we can shape our psychology and our perspectives on life to do good in the world. So let's begin. Okay, this is big idea number 1. We've all heard the phrase, just do what makes you happy, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that that is terrible advice. And the reason for that is that life is incredibly difficult. There seems to be an inevitable level of pain in everything we do, no matter who you are. And I think, the way I see it, is that that is the price that we pay to experience this human life. And Jordan Peterson argues that happiness as an emotion, it's not deep enough to help us contend with the inevitable pain and suffering that we'll come across in life. Now, I was born with cerebral palsy, right? And that caused me a certain level of physical and emotional pain growing up. But if I just responded to that with doing what made me happy, I would simply sit around, eat cake, and play video games. But where would my life be if I just continued on that path? Jordan Peterson describes life like a piece of music, and happy music, music that is just happy, sounds like this. It's just really quite unpleasant. The best songs come from a place of pain. They have deep meaning, and that deep meaning is beautiful. And these songs seem to hit a real chord down deep in the human soul, showing us that although life is painful, the pain is worth enduring to see the beauty on the other side.
At the stars, look how they shine for you.
Happiness is nice, don't get me wrong, but I can't say that happiness is beautiful.
There's this admission of a deep suffering at the same time as you get the beautiful transcendence of the music. And that's meaning, that's awful in the most fundamental sense, but you need an antidote to suffering, and it has to be deep. And deep moves you tectonically, and it's not a trivial thing. But that's better than happiness.
So now you know that just chasing happiness is not a good strategy to approach life. However, then the question arises of what do we do with our lives? And according to the second valuable lesson I've learned from Jordan Peterson, you should become dangerous. Not dangerous in the sense that you'll cause unnecessary destruction and harm and suffering to others. No. In fact, I'll let him tell you himself.
There's nothing that makes you more formidable than verbal competence, than being able to articulate, be able to think, to marshal your arguments, right? It's a battlefield metaphor. Get everything in order. Get all your information straight to marshal your forces.
You want to become so skilled, so competent, that you are dangerous to anyone who wants to compete with you in life. Specifically, you want to learn how to think, write, and speak clearly. Your capacity to articulate your thoughts and your views on the world creates your reality and molds the way that people perceive you. And to expand on that point, I would like you to meet someone. This is Lucas. He's a friend of mine, and we were both part of the presidential team at school this year. The reason I wanted to talk about Lucas is because the guy can verbally articulate himself like no one else I've ever seen that is my age. I've seen it a lot in discussion group, how you talk about in-depth political matters that I know nothing about, and the way that you talk in front of people. It's just very eloquent, it's very fluid. So one, I wanted to know whether you were aware you were good at this, how this might have happened, right? And do you agree with me in that it's valuable?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say that you are also very eloquent, Joel, so you've certainly got it nailed. I wasn't particularly aware. I mean, I always tried to be eloquent, sort of a lot of value in being able to convey what your thoughts. People will listen to you and people will respect what you have to say if you speak well. And certainly public speaking as well is sort of an art form, really, that is kind of almost lost nowadays because we aren't forced to do it enough.
If you say like it's something that you aim for, how do you think you developed the skill? Do you think it was something that you've just always had, or is it the way you're brought up?
Yeah, certainly. So I mean, my household talks a lot. There'll be the radio on, and my parents and I will just talk about it, or the TV's on, we'll just talk about it. We don't want to sort of sit in our rooms all secluded on our phone. We do actually discuss things, and that's been going on ever since I can remember. I think the fact that I feel confident to articulate my thoughts because I'm accustomed to actually talking to people about them, whereas a lot of people might be in a scenario where actually at school or these debate clubs, which we both go to, might be the first circumstance where they actually have been put in that position where people are listening to what they have to say. It gets me quite often when I have to do talks in front of a lot of people, and ultimately the way you get over that is just by experience, through talking about your opinions with people, and then you become more confident in what you have to say. I think ultimately that's the bottom line.
Especially with social media these days, the world lacks a lot of original thinkers. Most people just adopt the same ideas of the people they admire or the people they're told to listen to, instead of coming up with their own thoughts and constructing their own opinions. And this means that if you try and be an original thinker and articulate your ideas in a digestible manner to the masses, you can be hugely influential, and you can use that influence for the good. And that's what I'm trying to do when I make these videos, because, and this leads on to the third point, the most valuable lesson from this video, and that is that I am trying to live up to and be congruent with the ideal version of myself. In Jordan Peterson's third book, Beyond Order, rule 2 is, imagine who you could be and then aim single-mindedly at that. And the third most profound lesson that I learned from 100 hours of his content is how and why you should make that rule the focus of your life. And you might say, Joel,
I don't know who I could be, and I don't know what I should aim for.
Well, I would argue that you do. You may just not realise it. Sometimes we externalise our idea of the best version of ourselves onto someone else. You see this most prevalently in religions like Jesus Christ. Christ in Christianity is basically the idea of the most admirable human, and therefore people will commit hours of their lives to try and be like that person. Or even if you're not religious, we all have people that we see in the media or in our real life that we admire so much that we wish we could emulate their actions and imitate them. Now let me tell you a funny story. I remember when I was a kid and I first watched Kung Fu Panda 2 at the cinema. Trust me, the story is going somewhere. This film came out in 2011, so I must have been about 6 or 7 years old, and I vividly remember watching the final battle where Po is getting shot by these like flaming cannonball things, right? And then he just learns in that moment to have a sense of inner peace and inner enlightenment, and then he kind of catches these flaming cannonballs and then throws them back at the enemy, and he starts to win the fight. He shocks everyone. And I remember vividly, literally, I remember watching that film and thinking, I want to be like that. I want to have inner peace. I want to be able to catch and throw flaming cannonballs. So my 7-year-old self was inspired by the idea of who he could be. Yes, I'm not going to be a animated talking panda that can do kung fu, but what I'm saying is this showed me that we all have an idea in our minds of how we could be better in our lives, and we can learn that that aim, that idea, is possible to actualize in our daily lives. And actually, although it's going to be difficult, perhaps the most difficult thing you can possibly do in this world, becoming who you could be, becoming better, is potentially the best thing you can do for the world. Let's assume for a moment that you are the center of the universe. Obviously, physically you aren't, but when it comes to how you experience the world, you are the center, because everything outside of you occurs from your perspective because you experience it. You can't control what happens outside of you, but you can control yourself, what you do, what you think, and how you respond to things. So making yourself better, becoming who you could be, makes the world a better place. If you put yourself in order, you built some good habits, you structured your mindset appropriately, and you tried to do good, imagine how much better you would feel. Imagine how much better your life can be, and imagine how much of a positive impact you could have on your loved ones and your wider community. And the most powerful, profound, valuable lesson I learned from 100 hours of Jordan Peterson is that we have a responsibility to try and be that best version of ourselves. Try and be who we could be. And that, fundamentally, is the meaning of human life.
You have an ethical obligation to lift the heaviest load you can possibly conceive of. And that's the primary call to adventure in life.
Everyone benefits when you become the hero of your own life. So I'll leave you today with 2 questions. Who could you be? And what is your adventure?